Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy, what do we call this? Post election day 2024. I've got my Make America Great Again hat on this morning, feeling very, very relieved with the Trump victory that we have had. I'm just going to kind of stall here for a couple minutes just to let people see that I'm live here. If you are hanging out with me this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are tuning in from, drop me a comment, or if you have questions or races that you want to comment on that we can chat about, feel free to post those in the comments. I'm happy to chat about what you guys are, what's on your mind today. I know for my friends in Washington, it was bad. It was bad. It was a bad night. A huge blue tsunami has swept through Washington. So we're going to talk about that. Um, we're going to talk about what that means for the people in Washington. And as you all probably know, we do a lot of work in Washington. We started our work in Washington. We have a very active group, a team of people that, including myself, that work on legislation in Washington. And I'm going to pull up the results so we can kind of go through some of the legislative seats that we're watching, because that's where we do most of our work. We'll talk about some of the national level races as well, things that are going to impact. The Senate has shifted. The Republicans have picked up the majority in the Senate, and the House. It looks like they're going to retain the House by a slim majority. And one of the key races in the House is Washington's 3rd congressional district, which is Joe Kent is running to unseat Marie. I don't know how you say it, Glusenkamp. I don't know how you say it. Marie Perez. So we'll just call her Marie Perez. And that one has not been called yet. I'm watching that one really closely because I'm really praying that Joe is able to pull that off. That would be a huge win for Washington, and it would be a huge win for all of America to have Joe's voice in Congress. The other congressional district in Washington that I'm watching pretty closely is the 4th congressional district. Jared Sessler is running against Dan Newhouse, who is one of the, I think he's the last, if not, there's one other Republican still remaining in Congress that voted to impeach Donald Trump in 2021. And that race is still has not been called by the Associated Press. So, if you know Washington elections, you know that Washington has like an election season, which lasts many, many weeks. So ballots got mailed, I think, October 18th for Election Day on November 5th. And then they'll spend the next 2 or 3 weeks counting and contesting races, I suppose. So we'll see how that goes. But I know that's one of the unfortunate things about being a Washington voter is that you don't have immediate results in some of these pretty tight knit, pretty tight running elections. And Brandy is saying my ballot still has not been processed. So not surprising for a Washington election. Do go and check your ballot status at votewa.gov. You just put in your first name, your last name, and your birth date, and you can check to see if your ballot's been received, if it's been processed, and then I think if it's accepted is the last one. And once it's been accepted, you know that it's been put into the count. And so I went ahead, and my parents, and I have adult children that still live in Washington, so I went and checked all the status on their ballots so that if anything had gotten caught up, they could address that. So let's dig in. For those of you who don't know, I'm Julie Barrett. I founded Conservative Ladies of Washington back in 2020, and then we got really aggressive, I would say, in 2023, beginning of 2022 is when I personally started testifying in Washington state legislature and realized that there was a real need for the citizen voice, and that citizens really can have such a huge impact on policy making. And so it's been my mission and our mission as an organization to encourage, empower, and equip citizens, and educate citizens about their role in government and in the lawmaking process. It's for me, my wake up was in 2016, when Donald Trump was running for president. And it was actually when Target announced that they were going to allow men into women's bathrooms. And my twins were 10 years old at the time. And so we would go to Target, and, oftentimes I would let them go to the bathroom while I waited out in the hall, and they'd just go in and do their business. And I was waiting. I could see who was coming and going. Well, now there could be a man in there when my daughter went in. So that was really concerning to me. And that was kind of my, how did we get here? How are we letting men into our women's spaces and our private spaces? And how is this okay? And then, it was during the presidential election season. And so I started paying attention, started watching rallies of Trump's, and started hearing him talking about draining the swamp and the fake news. And so I just started like keying in on all these things. And that was for me the wake up moment, and just started gradually getting involved in things. And then, once 2020 hit and COVID hit, and I had started this little Facebook group and called it Conservative Ladies of Washington. And it turned out it was a magnet for conservative women in Washington, which is really cool. I've made so many great friends, and God has just been directing the steps of the little organization that could, and leading us into these different spaces. And I feel that he has definitely called us to see the need for citizen engagement in the lawmaking process. And in doing so, I've seen behind the curtain. Being involved in legislative activism has let me see really what goes on behind the process. And in Washington State, I was very naive, I guess, when I went into it, because I just figured that all of the Republicans were working against the Democrats. They were working for the citizens and trying to hold the line. And what I learned in a very short period of time when I first started testifying and watching things closely in 2022 was that a lot of the Republicans were working with the Democrats to pass some really bad policies. And after, what had happened with our family in 2021, I had started going down the rabbit hole and researching, all of the bad policies that we were living under that was creating this devastating situation for my family. I wanted to know, how did we get here? Who made these laws? And as it turned out, it was not just Democrats, it was Republicans. And sometimes it's Republicans because they're working with Democrats, and that's what the Uniparty does. Other times it's Republicans because they think that they're doing a good thing, like, for instance, mental health in schools. Republicans are often on board with that, and because they think it's a good thing and they think it will help kids. I like to think that's the intention. I'm not sure that it always is. I think for some of it is, and others do truly understand the motivation behind it. But it's one of those things where some of the Republicans had voted for these things because they thought they were doing a good thing and that they would be helping people. And so, that's another reason why it's so important for citizens to be paying attention to this stuff, because your legislator didn't go to school or get a certification to become a policymaker. They're just like you and I. They're just the ones that stepped up and said, I'll go vote for me, and I'll go. And here's what, here are all the good things I'm going to do. And so you and I have the ability to go research these things and ask questions and hold people accountable. And if you're, an expert on something, like say you are an expert on something, gun laws or something, like my friend Bill Kirk at Washington Gun Law, that's his wheelhouse. And so he can look at some of the proposed legislation and have a voice to our legislators about what does this really mean and how will this impact people. So you might have a gift in, education or medical, whatever area it happens to be, that would be really useful in certain aspects of policymaking. So just want to pause here to say hello to some of you. Hi, Christine. Christine is fearful and sad for Washington. I am too. I am too. And Night Wolf. Apparently, Washingtonians like their high taxes, eroding rights, and godless ideologies. My wife and I are leaving and taking our economic footprint with us. God bless you, my friend. Where are you going if you want to share? Um, I'm in Florida, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But it is painful to watch as Washington voters. Probably nobody on nobody who's watching me right now, but Washington voters who continue to vote for the same party that has been in power for truly for decades, and has led us to the place that we are, and the voters continue to keep these people in power. It's just astonishing to me that there's no like reality check moment. Nightwolf says we're looking at Kentucky and we have family there, or South Dakota. I like what I see in South Dakota. Hi Leslie, good morning. South Dakota, I just heard before I popped on here that by the way, I can't believe, Leslie, that you're awake. It's only 9:15. She's a night owl that usually rises at about noon, I think. So good to see you, Leslie. Leslie is one of our leaders in Western Washington. South Dakota passed the abortion, the constitutional amendment to put abortion into the South Dakota state constitution did fail. I learned that just before I got on. So I haven't like gone to the AP and verified that, but that is what I heard on X. Somebody responded to me on X about that. Hi, Tim. Yes, it is good to believe the best, but it's good to believe the best. And then when you see the reality, if the reality does not align with the belief, then we have to face that truth, and we have to hold people accountable. And I mean that in a respectful way. I don't mean, bashing people, but we need to speak truth. We need to speak, about the facts, and have respectful conversations with our elected officials, and try to correct them. And I mean that for Trump even. There are some things that concern me about Trump. He said, I think it was last week, he said in a rally about putting mental health into the government schools. I don't like that. I don't think I think schools should be academics only. I don't think we should have healthcare in school. We know what the agenda is with the healthcare, and that includes the mental health care, which every time you hear mental health care, you should consider what they're doing with the so-called gender affirming care on the mental health aspect of that, because that is a key component of the mental health care, which you do not, all my kids are over 18 now. So I don't have any kids in the government schools, which thank God, that was such a long road. But parents really need to be concerned about that. And we had a lot of experiences. So I do speak from experience with those things in the government schools in Western Washington, which Western Washington is like along the lines of California and New York with those types of things in schools. I believe the wording and fear confuses and scares uninformed voters here in Washington. I agree with you. And I think you're referencing the initiatives. So I don't recall specifically. There were a couple of bills in the 2024 session where they wanted to change things in the state laws as it pertained to initiatives. And one of those things was about the language on the ballot. I don't know the bill number off the top of my head, but there were like 3 or 4 different bills that came through in 2024 that were directed, excuse me, they were Democrat bills, and they were directed at the initiative process. With, of course, the legislature knew that they were getting all of these initiatives that were coming through, because 6 of them, I think that's correct. Maybe Leslie or Joy can correct me, but I think there were 6 that came through in January. There were 3 that passed by the legislature. And then the other 3 were on your ballot. And then there was the 4th one, which I believe was 2066 or 2166, the natural gas ban. So all 4 of those were on your ballot, and the language that was used for the description on the ballot was extremely deceptive and confusing, I would say. And if I was just a normie that didn't really pay much attention uh, to what was going on politically, I would read that description in my voters pamphlet, and I I would think it sounded like a bad thing. I know with one of them, I forget which number it was, 2019. Maybe someone can help me, can put the number of um, the repeal the Climate Commitment Act. If someone can put that in the chat, that would be awesome. I forget the number off the top of my head, but you had the Washington Education Association, you had all of the school districts, even um, the foundations that support the school district were, oh, thank you, 2117, is that the repeal, the CCA? Um, they were telling people that, if we pass this, public education is going to lose billions of dollars. And they even got students in some of the school districts. They got students to uh, text banking and doing some activism type of things. It was really crazy. But yes, hi Elizabeth, it's good to see you. The wording was negative. Yep. Um, and I think that had a lot to do with it. Plus, we know that there were millions and millions of dollars dumped into uh, defeating those initiatives. And yep, Nightwolf saying they lied through their teeth to keep the grift going. Absolutely 100%. Digitality productions. Mike here, Ferguson, the oathbreaker, now has even more power to violate our rights. The new AG will just back him up like Ferguson did with Inslee. We are not in a good place. You're right, Mike. So let's talk about that a little bit. Ferguson is like Inslee, a smarter, more sinister version of Inslee. And that's not good. That's very bad. A lot of the policy that we saw come through the state legislature just in these last 2 years that we've been really immersed in it was by request of the Attorney General's office, which is Bob Ferguson, who is now the governor-elect of Washington State. Some of those bills, 1333, which is, I forget what we call that bill. Let me look it up here really quick. But you guys probably know it's the Free Speech Violent Extremism Task Force or Commission that they want to put into law. It would basically I think it would create sort of a database of tracking of citizen activists, citizen organizations, activist organizations, people like Conservative Ladies, my friend that the 3%ers of Washington. I know they actually specifically used them in the presentation that Bob Ferguson's office did for the legislature in 2023. So they're picking specific people and specific groups. We know that any kind of like what they deem as hate speech it is going to be wrapped up into this bill. It's a really, really bad bill, and would really allow the government to criminalize people for their speech or their beliefs. It's a dangerous bill. Really quite scary. It got national attention. I presume that the national attention that it got during the 2023 legislative session, the negative press it got is probably why the Democrats didn't push it forward in 2024, being that it was an election year. They were probably also very confident that they would retain their majority, if not gain a supermajority in the election. So they would be able to put it forward in 2025. So that is on our watch list for it to come back. I'm going to go ahead and put a link to our recent Substack that we did on this into the chat. So if you guys want to go learn more about that, you can do that there. Another one was the assault weapons ban. That was a request of AG Ferguson. And you probably all are very aware of the assault weapons ban that was passed this year. He also was a big player in the high capacity magazine ban of 2022. He is very anti Second Amendment, as probably everybody watching this knows. I was talking to my daughter about. She called me this morning and was, asking about what was Ferguson, what was it going to be like with Ferguson being the governor of Washington. And I was telling her about unconstitutional laws that have been passed, and she said, "Well, like, how can they do that if they're unconstitutional?" And that's the thing, is that with the Democrats having power and having such a majority, and having the courts captured and lawsuits being so expensive, with all these, hundreds of bills being passed that really are not constitutional, it's difficult for anybody to, you know, to, uh, you know, come against those through the court system. And aside from elections, and as we know, getting Republicans elected in Washington is not an easy task. The another one of note, two more of note, and then we'll move on. The Artificial Intelligence Task Force, the AI Task Force, that was a request of Bob Ferguson's office. That was a bipartisan bill. I love it when we pass unconstitutional bipartisan bills. I don't think the AI bill is unconstitutional. It's just a bad bill. But it's a task force that's going to look into all of the AI stuff and make recommendations to the state legislature about the regulations that should be on on AI in the state. So I actually sat through a task force meeting. You can watch them on tvw.org. If you're looking for a good time, tvw.org has lots of great on-demand content and live. Anyway, I'm a nerd like that. So I was watching one of their task force meetings, and they've got, representation from all these different marginalized groups, and like one person that has any knowledge about AI. So as you can imagine, it was, a lot of talk about pronouns and, helping marginalized communities and this, that, and the other thing. So it was a bunch of baloney, and it's scary that we have these people that will be making recommendations on policy, and then certainly the Democrat majority will pick up those recommendations. So the task force was launched, I think it was July, and so they have 2 years before they will make their recommendations to the legislature on what policies should be made. Who won Superintendent of Public Instruction? Well, let's go. And sorry, before I go on to that, I want to tell you about one more bad Bob bill that was passed in this last biennium, and that is House Bill 1469, which is the SHIELD Act, which allows for the trafficking of transgender trafficking, abortion trafficking. It allows children to be brought to Washington state for abortion or so-called gender affirming care, and nobody can do anything about it. They'll be shielded in Washington. And so will the medical providers or people that are housing them or people that are bringing them there. So it's a really bad thing. And we have already seen, since 1469 was passed in 2023, we have seen red states, specifically Idaho. I believe Texas passed something as well against these shield laws that are being passed in blue states. California has one. Maine just passed one this year as well. And I believe New York has one. There's like a dozen blue states that have them. So let's take a look at, let me share my screen, and let's go through some of these Washington election results. All right. So let's look at Dan Becky. Dan, I'm guessing that's Dan and Becky. It's a couple probably. Asking about Superintendent of Public Instruction. So we'll go to that one first since you asked about it. Currently, as of last night at 8:15. I'm surprised. I mean, it's Washington. I shouldn't say I'm surprised. They didn't count after 8:15. And polls closed at 8 o'clock, and they stopped counting at 8:59. Okay. Um, Now I live in Florida, and we had our results in 100% an hour after the election closed, out after the ballots closed. Well, the panhandle's in a different time zone, so it was like technically it was 2 hours after the polls closed here in Southwest Florida, but they had it in so fast. If Florida can do it, every state can do it, and I think this is crazy that they haven't updated since since 9 o'clock last night. That's crazy. So anyway, Reichdahl has a strong lead so far. I don't imagine that we will see that change much. So let's go look at the governor. I was really hoping that by the time I went live this morning, being that it's already 9:30 in Washington, they would have more. They would have another update, but shocking. Uh, Let's see. So there you got Ferguson at 56.28. And you can, this is, I'm going to, I'll go back to the main page, but this is a great tool that you can go to. You can look at all of the different, right now I'm in state executive positions. So lieutenant governor is Denny Heck. Looks like he's going to pull that off. Now, the AP has called these races for a number of them. I know that obviously for Ferguson, they called that last night. Secretary of State, gosh, Dale Whitaker is such an awesome candidate. He is really amazing. I hope that this is just the beginning of his political career, whether he stays in Washington and runs for something else. Maybe he's in the Spokane area, I believe. So if he runs for something over there, he probably has a much better chance of victory over there just because of the demographics. But he would have been amazing for Secretary of State. And considering how bad the elections are, I'm shocked that Steve Hobbs is just running away with this thing. There are organizations in Washington that are, I'll say, right leaning, that would refused to endorse Dale or even put Dale on their voting guide because he's an America First candidate. So, I mean, that's discouraging. I don't know if it would have made a lot of difference, but I think if we're not even willing to play with different Republicans who might not see completely eye to eye with us, which is what the moderates are always telling the more conservative side of the Republican Party is, you guys have to, it's give and take, and you guys have to, be flexible and be moderate. But when it comes to coming more to the conservative side, they just won't budge. So it's all of the meeting in the middle is for us conservative folks. So anyway, Dale would have been wonderful for the elections, and he's a great candidate, like I said, and a great guy. He and his wife are super awesome. They're immigrants from, I believe it's the UK. State treasurer, I don't even know how much campaigning was done on this. Sharon would have been a great candidate for this. It's one of those races you don't hear a lot about, but certainly is important. The person that's keeping track of the money would be good to have a fresh set of eyes on this. Okay, where are we at? Auditor, that was Matt Hawkins. Again, they're running away with it. Oh gosh, this was Attorney General. This was another one. I was really hopeful. Pete, huge thanks to all of these Republican candidates who stepped up to run against these Democrats. That is no easy feat in Washington state. You pretty much go into it, I would think. I mean, if I was going to run in Washington, I would pretty much go into it knowing that my chances were slim to none. But I would go in and fight a good fight. And Pete Serrano, Dale Whitaker, those guys fought a very good fight. They spent a lot of time. They just ran just excellent campaigns. I really had high hopes that Pete might be able to pull this off. I thought that would have given some balance to having Bob Ferguson in the governor's mansion. You know, it's still, I don't remember how many votes were cast in Washington this election. I don't know how many are left to count. But, you know, anything could happen. Miracles could happen. So keep praying. I think that's an important one. Now, Commissioner of Public Lands, this is interesting because I think of all of the Republicans that ran for these state executive positions, I feel like Jamie Herrera Butler probably had the best chance because of, you know, she was one of the 10 Congress people who voted to impeach Trump. So that would have won her favor amongst Democrats in Washington. But it doesn't look like she's going to pull this off. And I hear that Dave Up the Grove is pretty radical. So not a good thing. We already did Superintendent of Public Instruction and Insurance. This is one I haven't looked at. Oh my. So both of these, Patty Cooter and Phil Fortunato, are both currently state senators. Phil Fortunato will be able to keep his Senate seat, and Patty, it looks like, is going to go on to be the insurance commissioner, which has a number of concerns. But there is a concern about the insurance connection with firearm rights. So you'll want to be paying attention to that. I know that my buddy Bill Kirk over at Washington Gun Law will probably address that as well. I have my MAGA mom mug today. Okay, let's take a look at some of these legislative seats. I'm just going to look here in the chat to see if there's any questions. Mail-in voting, Google Voice. Oh, yes, mail-in balloting is a big problem. We have kept Sideshow in check. Now they're going to be able to ram every agenda down our throats. Yeah, well, Godspeed to you, Night Wolf. It is a difficult decision to leave. My husband and I left. We bought our home here in 2022, and we moved in the summer of 2023. Both of us, born, raised, lived our entire lives there, raised our children there, still have adult children, and both sets of parents are still in Washington State. It was not an easy decision to leave. Weighed heavily on our hearts, and we come back quite frequently. But I just, you know, if you're going to stay in Washington, I'm going to help you fight. I will help the people that are staying in Washington. I will help you fight from here, and I'll come back as I do. I come back usually quarterly and help some of our conservative legislators. Our organization is committed to helping those people in the state legislature. I'll fight until the last person is, you know, until they turn the lights out in Washington. I'll fight with you from here. But I think if you are feeling like it's time to go, you've seen enough, it's time to go, I certainly encourage you to, you know, pray about that. And if God is leading you somewhere else, don't feel bad about going. You know, you have to live under these laws and these policies that, you know, for our family were extremely destructive for our family. And even after we went through that, I thought, I just didn't feel like God was calling us out. And then after I watched the 2022 legislative session, I said to my husband, I said, I think we have to go. I've watched a number of bad policies get passed, and I watched a number of Republicans working together with the Democrats to pass them. And so I didn't feel like there was any resistance. But I do say, if you are going to go to a red state because you want to live under better laws, you need to be committed to engaging in the fight in your new home. Because the left is here in Southwest Florida. The left is working really hard to take hold. We just had an abortion amendment on our ballot that would have been looked a whole lot like Washington's abortion policies, would have been no limits on abortion, abortion up till birth, repealed the parental rights laws in Florida. And I worked very hard to get the no vote out on that, as did many other people and churches and pastors and things like that. They are working really hard in the red states. So you can't go to red states and kick up your heels and just call it good. You need to be committed to engaging in the fight, and would love for you to join us and join our legislative action team, because wherever you go, we'll help you fight. We'll help you look through the policies and figure out how you can make an impact. So with that said, I just wanted to, we've got a few people here who are like, I'm not staying anymore. Gonna check. I'll stop this just for a second. I want to read through a couple of these comments. Mike, another concern for us is having to get an insurance policy for each firearm. In doing so, it would be an easy way to see who owns what and what serial numbers. It's not legal, and it's also expensive. That's a really good point. That is a way for them to build a database and to, figure out who has what, who has how many firearms. Which is it's a very scary thing that they're doing with the gun agenda. Absolutely unconstitutional. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but the White House, was it the White House or was it Kamala? And maybe as vice president, she put it out like, it's time to ban assault weapons or ban assault weapons. Now there was some big orange graphic that they put out last week, and they're not trying to hide their agenda, and they do not want, Bill Kirk puts it best, it's citizen disarmament. It's not anti-gun. I mean, it is anti-gun, but really what the goal is to disarm citizens, disarm law-abiding citizens, so that the Second Amendment is not going to work for what our founding fathers intended it to. So that's an area that people really need to push back. And I don't really know any gun owners that are going to surrender their firearms quietly. So see how that works out. We need a federal investigation into the corruption of the Washington state election. I'm not sure what corruption you're referring to. There's so much corruption in Washington. It could be any number of things, but one of the things that we've noticed that a lot of citizens are unaware of is how many new bills get passed each session that chip away further at the elections in Washington. There were maybe half a dozen new bills directed at the elections process, bad bills, by the way, that were passed in the last biennium, 23-24 in Washington state, making the already bad elections even worse. And a lot of citizens don't know about that. And we've tried really hard to do everything we can to spread the word so that people know what's going on, so that they can speak up before the law is passed. Usually it gets passed anyway. But I moved here in '89 when I separated from USAF. Washington was wonderful then, although Democratic not. Yeah, like I said, I was born and raised in Washington, so I lived there all my life, and it was so different. I remember my family would go downtown Seattle every Christmas season on Thanksgiving weekend, and we would stay downtown for the night, and we'd go see Santa, and usually we'd go to like a production or play or something at the Fifth Avenue Theater, something like that, and we would be able to just walk on the streets, not alone, but like in front, several steps ahead of my parents without worry. You didn't have the homeless situation that you have now. You didn't have the violence that you have now. It was very different. It was clean. It was nice. And it was safe. We have elderly parents that need us. So for now we are stuck. I understand that is certainly the case for many people. And you have to do what is right for your family. And Night Wolf, we don't have my wife. I can't afford a home here. See, that was the biggest thing for us, was not being able to afford a home. My husband and I got married in 2019. We had Blended family of 5. We had 5 kids, 4 of them still living at home. They were all, in high school. They were all like 1 year apart. And so we rented a big 5-bedroom house, but knowing that they weren't, we were going to be empty nesters soon, we didn't want to buy a big, huge house. But even like, I'm thinking of the house that we rented, it sold for like 720,000 in 2017 when it was built. And then in 2021, it was like 1.8, it was Zillowed at 1.8 million. Like, and it's a cookie cutter house with no yard. Anyway, we were like, we can't afford the, in that area of, Snohomish County, King County, you're looking at, 800,000 to $1 million for a 1970s 3-bedroom house. And, yeah, so that was a big factor for us, as well. I made a comment a couple minutes ago about bills getting passed anyway. And so I want to, before we dig into the legislative seats, I want to talk about that. Why do you bother to speak up if you know they're just going to pass it anyway? And maybe I'm just stubborn and hard headed like this, but what I found when I first started getting involved is, in the first bill that really was, a bee in my bonnet kind of thing, was Senate Bill 5883 in 2022. It was a youth homeless bill, and if you know the story of what happened with our daughter, that's why it really hit home for me, and it was very personal for me. I testified on that bill every opportunity that I had. I think there were 5 or 6 times I testified on that bill, and I told the story of what happened with my daughter. And I knew that they were going to pass it anyway. I watched them dismiss me over and over again. I watched as conservative legislators proposed amendments to the bill that would have at least required people to check with a child, to check and verify that a child was indeed homeless before they gave them services and things like that. And I knew the whole time, I knew they were going to pass it, but couldn't I couldn't let them pass it in the dark. I couldn't go down without a fight. I was going to go kicking and screaming. They were going to hear from me every step of the way on that bill. And I just have kind of carried that forward into sort of the mission of conservative ladies and the work that we do. And our whole team has really adopted that. Like, we're not going to let you guys do this quiet. We're not going to let you do this in the dark. We are going to make as much noise as possible. And we're going to be here to speak up about this at every turn. And you're going to have to see us. You're going to have to see our faces. You're going to have to hear our voices. And that's really important, because I think that the Democrats, especially, I think nationwide, I mean, I think what this election showed to Americans is that the Democrats are completely out of touch with the average American. Like, these policies that they've been doing for the last, especially 4 years, but I mean, let's face it, this has been going on for decades, and it's just getting louder and more noticeable, more blatant for everybody to see. I think that this election across the board, especially with Trump winning, he won the popular vote and the electoral vote, and that hasn't been done since 2004 with George W. Bush. And that should be, although I don't think they have the self-awareness for this, but that should be a sign to the Democrats of how out of touch they are with the American people. That, I was watching, I think it was maybe some leftist melting down about how clearly the white women, I forget, like, white women are listening to their husbands and they're letting their husbands tell them what to do. And so they're voting for Donald Trump. To me, that's such a slap in the face that, they would say that to about women, but it's of course predictable. But they don't have a handle on women. Like, maybe white women voters care about things beyond being able to kill unborn babies. I mean, maybe they care about the safety of their families. Maybe they care about their daughters not having to compete against males in sports, or finding a boy in the bathroom at school, and not knowing how to handle that. Maybe women care about the price of gas or the price of groceries, the illegal immigration that's been happening, a wide open southern border. Maybe, just maybe, white women care about things besides killing babies in the womb. So I think it would be great if it was a wake up moment for the Democrats, but I am not holding my breath. Um, so, and I think, unfortunately, in states like the whole West Coast, with Washington, Oregon, California, probably even New York and some of those other states, those Democrats won't get it either, because they'll see that, oh, we won, we had this big blue wave, and everybody loves us, and as you guys know, it's the big cities like Seattle and LA and San Francisco, and those big urban areas that really determine the outcome of the election. So, anyway, my point there was, we have to speak up. Even if we know we're going to lose, we have to speak up. We can't go down without a fight. We can't let them pass these policies without a fight, and speaking up. So please consider. Joy's been. I thought I saw Joy posting in here. Oh, there she is. Yeah. Joy's been posting about our legislation and our team and stuff. So if you are in a blue state, if you're in Washington, join us. And I will post, unless Joy, if you have it, if you're still with us, Joy, and you can post the link to the Zoom on Monday night. We're doing a Zoom. It's kind of like an open house kind of thing. Our legislative action team meets every Monday night. And next Monday, November 11th, we're having a meeting where people that are interested and curious about the work we do and want to, figure out if that's a fit for them, you're welcome to join us. We'd love for you to join us. You'll be able to hear from people on the team, hear about the work that we do. Some people are more have a more public position where they might be testifying on things. Other people, they can't for various reasons, or they don't feel comfortable with it. And so they do a lot of researching, or there's other areas that you can help our team without having to be public. So, we have people that work for companies that don't particularly say, particularly favor conservative viewpoints, in Western Washington, a lot of those tech companies and stuff. And so if they found out that you were, testifying on some bill, they may not like that. In fact, I was working for a nonprofit organization that worked with the school district, and I was testifying on a bunch of education bills, and members of the board found out and wanted to get me fired. I didn't get fired, but my contract was not renewed, but that's okay. I don't live there anymore, so that's fine. Okay, let's look at the legislative seats. Mike says, I saw Walsh say in session these bills are unconstitutional on the state and federal level. The response was, we are doing it anyway. That is correct. That is how it works. All right, let's go back to the map. If you guys have any specific districts you want me to zoom in on, just throw that in the chat. So these are the legislative seats. Let's go to District 2. District 2, we have two of our endorsed candidates in this legislative district. Jim McCune is by far the the most conservative senator in Washington state. And he is wonderful. He will speak up on things. He is great for our team to work with. We really appreciate all the work that he does, and we work with him closely. So it looks like he is going to run away with this. He was, just kind of for some inside baseball, for those of you who don't know, the Republican minority leader had put up a more moderate Republican to challenge him in the primary. And they put a lot of money into that to unseat Jim McCune, and he prevailed through the primary, and then now he's going to win the general as well. So that's great. We're really happy to see that. We wish that Republicans wouldn't put so much money into unseating conservatives, but yet they do. Andrew Barkus runs unchallenged the last few races, the last few elections he has. Okay, this one's interesting. Matt Marshall is one of our endorsed candidates. He is an excellent candidate. And so this is really exciting to see that he looks like he is going to pull this off. John Snazza was a sheriff. I want to say it's Thurston County. Someone watching may know. He has got, he just finished law school. He's got medical background. He was a school board director. He's just really well-rounded. And he's going to be a great person to have in the state legislature. So really excited to see that. I think that as many, conservatives as we can get in the legislature, they've pushed a lot of them out in recent years, like Vicky Kraft, Brad Klippert, Matt Shea, Robert Sutherland. Some of those folks have been kind of pushed out because they're too conservative. They don't work well with the Democrats, which is why we like them. So that's looking good in District 2, which that was a safe Republican district. Let's look at where is it? Wanted to go to Whidbey Island. It's not 21. No. Oh, let's look at 21 though while we're here. Riaz Khan is an interesting candidate because he was part of the Democrat. He was like a Democrat Party chair in Snohomish County or something recently. This isn't old. And then he changed parties and is running as a Republican. So he's not going to win. Christina Mitchell isn't going to win. So that's unfortunate. I would say most of these incumbent Republicans are going to hold their seats. This is what I wanted, District 10. This seat has been, and I'm always told that Ron Mazzal, who is the incumbent Republican senator in, this is like Whidbey Island, Oak Harbor area. I'm always told that he votes very moderately because he needs to do that to keep his seat. And this is definitely a kind of a swing district, I suppose you could say. It was Republican up until a couple sessions ago. So this is Mazzal's. He would be reelected to his second term. I'm going to say this is still really close. I don't know how much let's take a look at the map. What do we got? Okay. I was hoping that it would show me like what percentage of the votes had been counted, but that's not the case. So, but I still think like this is really close. It's, I still think that he could pull that off. So we're going to hope that Mazzal is able to hold that seat. Kerry Kennedy is trailing Clyde Shavers. We endorsed Kerry Kennedy as well. She's a strong conservative. And it looks like the second seat is going to go as well. Yes, Matt Shea just got vindicated. Let's see. It's still so early with some of these legislative seats. 19 for everybody that knows, like Jim Walsh and Jeff Wilson and Joel McIntyre are all in the 19th district, and they all handily won their races. So that is good. They're all great people to have. Let's take a look at the redistricting. Curtis King, this was so he got redistricted he got redistricted out. He's currently the state senator in the 14th LD, but he got redistricted out. So he actually had to move to be able to run for this seat again. And it looks like he's going to keep it, which is great. Although he's very moderate, but probably less evil than Maria Beltran, less left. And it's great. Gloria Mendoza is going to pick up this seat, and Deb Manjares. I met both of those ladies last spring, both really great ladies. So that's good. That's good to see that. So this 14 and 15 were both impacted by the redistricting. So I know Nikki Torres is the senator in 15, and she's not up for reelection, but this is good. So Jeremy Dufall, was a legislator prior to, I think his term ended in 2022. I think he got redistricted, and so he didn't run again. And so now he's running for, so he ran for this seat again because when they when they did the redistricting again, he got redistricted back in. So he ran again, and it looks like he is going to handily win that seat, which is great. I understand that he is a good conservative. Jim Walsh gave me that information, so that's a trustworthy source. Greg wants to know about the 42nd. Let's take a look. I know the Senate, the Senate seat is not up. It's not looking good here. And I think this is prior to like the last 4 years, this was a pretty well, maybe we call it purple. I think with Western up there, you get a lot of the progressive vote. So it's not looking good. It's not looking like these will flip. I'm curious about 42. Leslie, are you curious about, maybe it's 41? Are good. Oh man, I was really hoping that Jaskaran, I don't know how you say it. I was really hoping that he could win. Lisa Wellman is just, she is bad for kids, bad for families, bad for parents. She's the chair of the education committee. So, and it looks like the Republican or the Democrats are going to safely hold that seat. 39 is another interesting one. This is where you have more Republican on Republican. Robert Sutherland, for those of you who don't know, Robert Sutherland held this seat up until 2022. He was one of the legislators that went to the Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy. There was like a symposium, some election integrity symposium back in, I want to say it was like late 2021 or something, early 2022. And he and a few other legislators on their own dime went and attended that to learn about what happened in the 2020 election, which of course it was so safe and secure. I don't know why we need to talk about that. And Jay Inslee went after him. And of course, Republican leadership went after him as well to unseat him. Sam Lowe is a Snohomish County councilman, and he now holds this legislative seat, which it looks like he's going to keep that. Sam Lowe is a nice guy. I've met Sam personally. Nice guy. Nice people can pass bad policy. And I would say Sam falls into that category as far as I'm concerned. He's a nice guy, but some of the policies he passes are bad policies and bad for people. Carolyn Eslick is, I've never met her in person, but I hear she's a nice lady, and I'm sure I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. She's a nice lady. Again, bad policy. So we recommended Robert Sutherland and Jackie Huey for these positions. Primarily, House Bill 2368, hopefully I got the number right, is to create an Office of Immigrant and Refugee Assistance in Washington. And this would give people, immigrants, illegal immigrants, cash, food, jobs, housing. And they said at the time, well, it's just to create the office. There's no money going to it. Well, when has government ever created an office and not put money to it, right? So of course, there has been a lot of funding. Most recently, 25 million in funding of the fine people of Washington's taxpayer dollars going to that. Thanks to Republican they sponsored the bill and they also voted for it. So these are things. This is why we want people to be involved, because when you see a bill like this come forward where a Republican is sponsoring really bad policy that's harmful to citizens, that's not constitutional, you have an opportunity to email those people, to call those people, to reach out to them respectfully and express your concerns with the policies that they're pushing. And that's a really important thing. If we can, if people could start doing a lot of, like, If everybody did something, we talk about this on our team all the time. If everybody did a little thing, it turns out to be a big thing. It doesn't take a lot of time to shoot off an email to your representative, and you can email these people even if they're not your representative. And all that information is available at ledge.wa.gov. And we try to put out all that information as well so people can connect with them. I don't know. Let's take a look at the measures and then we'll probably try to wrap it up. I thought, yeah, okay, this is passing. I thought this was the only this. So this is the gas ban, to repeal the gas ban or make sure they can't ban natural gas. So it looks like as of right now, it's looking okay. I believe the other three are all no's. Yeah, 2109. I forget off the top of my head which one that is. Is 2109 the one, the climate commitment, or is that 2117? I think you guys said it was 2117. So this one is failing as well. And 2124, I think this one is for the long-term, to repeal the Long-Term Care Act or to, okay, thank you, 2117. I think this is to make the Long-Term Care Act optional, so people aren't obligated to participate in that. Yes, thank you. Make it optional. So I can't believe that one's not passing. And I mean, I say these things, partially because I can't believe that so many people are unwilling to do the homework to figure out what these things are about and how it's impacting them. And they just believe the lies that the mainstream media is feeding them. Let's really quickly, let's just really quickly look at a couple of the national races. So I'm using, I want that one. Sorry, you can't see my screen yet. There we go. I'm using decisiondeskhq.com. I was following them on X last night. They had really accurate results across the country. And so this is a good site if you're looking at if you want to see what's going on a federal level, like with the Senate race. So it's loading. All right. So after all that negative talk about Washington, hopefully this makes you guys feel a little bit better. On a federal level, we're doing okay. We got Trump in, which is huge. Huge. And it looks like we are going to take control of the Senate. And we know that Mitch McConnell has already said, he said this back in February, that he is stepping down as Senate leader, which would be good. So who do you guys want for Senate leader? Who do you think would be a good leader for the Senate? I personally like Mike Lee or Josh Hawley of Missouri. Those would be kind of my two picks off the top of my head. Now, Montana flipped. John Tester lost to Tim Sheehy. Did I say it right? Hopefully. I'm not sure. I think that this is a hold. Pennsylvania. I don't know if, let's see. I don't think this one hasn't been called yet. So there are, let's take a look at the 4. I think there's 4 that haven't been called. So Pennsylvania hasn't been called. Republican has a slight lead here. Nevada also hasn't been called. That's really close. And Arizona is another close one, but not as close as some of the others. I don't think it's looking good for Carrie Lake, but we'll see. And Arizona had all that wonky stuff from the last two elections, so that's really not trustworthy. I did hear that the RNC and the Trump team and they've got lawyers on the ground watching all of the election uh, results in real time. They've got lawyers in these battleground states making sure that we don't see a repeat of some of the shenanigans that we had in 2020. So uh, right now we have 52 confirmed Republican seats in the Senate. That's huge. Uh, Hopefully they're conservative Republicans and not won't work together with the Democrats. But I think one of the things I worry about is, when Trump was in office before and they had they took the House in, what was it, 2018? It seemed like, there was Russia going on, there was always all these distractions going on, but it felt like they could have made so much more progress, but they didn't. So I'm very hopeful that we will see a different kind of progress this time with, Trump having a second presidency. I think JD Vance is a much better vice president. I'm hoping that he'll be a lot more active as have an active role. I didn't feel like Pence was, I don't know, he didn't do much for me. Okay, now in the House, so in Washington, the 4th congressional district is a hold, right? Because no matter which, if Jared Sessler wins, he's still a Republican. So technically, that would not be a flip. In the 3rd district, however, you would flip. Why is it? This is kind of annoying. Okay, stop it. Okay. All right. Well, it's better. So as of right now, the Republicans have 210 seats and the Democrats have 193. I'm going to let my cat in so he will stop scratching at the door. Real life here. It's not kids, it's pets, right? So if when they hit 218, that'll be a majority. So I'm hopeful that these results will come in before the end of the week. But with some of the states like Washington, where it's going to take probably a couple weeks before we know about District 3, I think that might happen with Arizona as well. So I think we're looking good so far, but definitely want to keep watching that. So I hope that's helpful. I was up until about 2 a.m. Eastern time last night because I think all of America had this fear of, if we go to bed, they're going to stop counting the ballots. So everybody was just doing everything they could to stay awake and keep watching things. So it was a good night though, and I think a lot of people are still kind of bracing themselves. Is this real? Is this going to hold? I don't know I do think it's going to hold. I don't feel like the Democrats are going to go quietly. I don't know what that looks like. I'm definitely not trying to like fearmonger anybody. I'm not saying it's going to be bad. But even in 2016, there was rioting on the East Coast when Trump was inaugurated. So we're going to see something. I was really encouraged last night to see that Antifa went into Seattle, and Seattle Police Department was all over it. They were not having any of it, and they were making arrests, and Antifa went home. So that is great to see that. And that gives me a lot of hope that maybe we've learned some lessons about how to handle these things and not let our cities be destroyed. So I hope that's a sign of good things to come. Well, we heard from I think it was Jamie Raskin said that if Trump won, they weren't going to certify the election or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I do believe that that the Republican side, Donald Trump and his coalition, of Musk and Rogan and, all these people that he has pulled into his team, I think there's a lot more eyes on what's going on, and I think people like Joe Rogan and Elon Musk and throw out other names here. I kind of drawing up a blank at the moment, but maybe it's because I didn't sleep very much last night. But I think that having those voices and some of them having very loud megaphones, right, like Musk and Rogan, I think that's changing things a lot. I feel like a lot of 2020 stuff was literally happened in the dark because it was the mainstream media really was the only real big mouthpiece. So I'm hopeful. I'm definitely hopeful and optimistic. I do want to say that uh, I believe that God has shown mercy on America. I believe this is a gift that we don't deserve and we haven't earned it. I hope that we will take this opportunity to speak up, to ask ourselves, what can I do different? How can I engage if you're not engaging at all? If you're just engaging online and you realize that you need to step it up a notch, from, being on the keyboard to maybe going to a school board meeting or sending email, maybe I'm going to start with emailing my legislator about bills that concern me, and that's going to be my first step in a new direction. I think we all have to realize that we have to play a part. And, I'm a Gen Xer, and I feel like my whole generation has been just really apathetic, just not involved in government. Like we're born into America and it's free and it's, we have all these God-given rights and it's great and we love it. And we don't have to pay attention to anything. We don't have to do anything. Everybody already fought for us, and we don't have to deal with it. But how wrong we are. And I know I sat on the sidelines for far too long, and I just didn't even know what was going on. I didn't if there was something to do, I didn't even know what it was. But once you can do something about it. And so I would encourage you to really think about, what is it that I'm being called to do in this time? And that looks different for everybody. You're maybe not called to start an organization and engage in policy like apparently I am. But there is something for everyone. And we have a great team of people, leaders and activists. And if you are looking to get engaged, but you don't know where to start, please come join us on Monday night at our Zoom meeting. You can go to, I think I posted it on Facebook. I don't have the link right now, but or you can also email me, or if you comment, what's the link, I'll reply later and give you the Zoom link. You can also email me, Julie at conservativeladiesofwa.com, and I'll send it to you. But that's going to be Monday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And see if this is for you. Everybody on our team, it's a great place to kind of collaborate and get different ideas of what's going on and where could your talents and skills be used best. So encourage you to come and check it out. There's no harm in checking it out. Even if you're like on the go on Monday night, you can, Zoom in from your phone or whatever. But we would love to see you. Tim is saying he slept most of the day, watched it all, been up since 6 p.m. Oh, so you're pulling all-nighter. Yes, Elizabeth, we have been given a glimmer of hope, and let's seize this moment. Sorry, Julie, I've got a face. Well, you can turn your camera off if you'd like to come join us. Rather not be involved in the government. Totally get it. I never wanted to be involved in government either. Yet here I am. And I believe that we've been given this gift that so many people bled and died for, that we have an obligation to at least do something, to do at least what we can to preserve this great nation that we have been given, preserve that for our children and our grandchildren. So I hope that you will consider joining me. And if you don't join me, consider just getting involved in some level. Like I said, there's something for everybody. We all need to do our part to make sure that, I mean, we We dodged a bullet, literally. Trump literally dodged the bullet, and we figuratively dodged the bullet with with Kamala not being elected last night. That would have been devastating, I believe, for America. And so we've got this opportunity. So let's seize it. Let's be filled with hope and gratitude. And from wherever you are, if you're in Washington fighting behind enemy lines, you still have a voice and you still need to use it. Even if the people are going to do their evil stuff, you still need to speak up and go down kicking and screaming, and don't let them win without putting up a fight. All right, you guys, thanks for joining me. It was great to see you. Happy day after the election day. I don't know about you, but at least the texts have stopped. I'll see you next time.